call this meeting to order at 5:01. All members are present, so we do have a quorum. Last meeting, we had talked about, some specific points we wanted to jump into. Does anybody want to start the conversation? I spent a couple of days just going through the whole, and I've read through it a number of times, but just going through a lot of the stuff in here. And I got notes all over, so, anybody want to start?
I have notes all over the place too, so. Start from the beginning and go.
However you guys want to go at it. We can start at page 1 and, so we had talked about just how the meetings are run and so forth.
Right.
So just to jump into that, so let me find the section. And it started in chairman's
Responsibilities.
Yeah, chairperson, it's 9121B. So line item 2, it talks about consult with the superintendent and planning the board's agenda, but then also a 9323. It has, I think we had talked about that a little bit,
Yeah.
just clearing, cleaning that up a little bit. So a 9323, and I don't know if that's redundant, just having that there with the chairman's responsibility, but I think at the very least, it should reference 9323. And it says the chair of the board in cooperation with the superintendent should prepare an agenda for each regular meeting. And then it goes on to say, any member of the board may call the superintendent and request any item be placed on the agenda later than 72 hours prior to legally required posting. Which, if the chairman's preparing it, then, members shouldn't be able to just call the superintendent and say, correct.
We had talked about changing that to chairperson last week.
Yeah, but so I think it's in the council's rules of order, and I couldn't find it necessarily in Robert's rules, but I had wrote, instead of any member of the board may call the superintendent, but any member may request the chairman add an item on the agenda. If the chairman refuses, because it is his obligation to do that, or not his obligation, it's his choice to do that, it may be added by a 2/3 majority at the meeting or with a signed document by a simple majority presented to the recording secretary 72 hours prior to the start of the meeting.
Yeah, I saw the council rules of order simply says that the council clerk shall prepare an agenda relating to the order of business to be considered at the regular meeting, distribute copies to each council member, the mayor, chief, etc., etc. It says the council chair will preside at all council meetings, and it continues to say that the council chair or the presiding officer shall preserve order and decorum, and shall decide all questions of order upon which no debate shall be allowed except by the request of the presiding officer, but any such decision shall be subject to an appeal to the council and decided by a majority vote. So basically, if somebody wants something, the chairman decides, yes, no, these are conditions. If they don't agree to that, they can appeal to the whole body.
Yeah, I remember at one point we had 7 signatures, but I think a lot of the rules in here refer to if it's either by a 2/3 majority vote at the meeting, or by a simple majority if it's written
in the notice. Yeah, I say they don't normally do that over on the town side. It's normally always 2/3 majority, because that's FOI. That comes directly from the Freedom of Information Act.
Right.
You can add items to and suspend the rules on a regular meeting, on the agenda for a regular meeting, if with 2/3 of the body. Okay. They don't normally have anything about, but if it's already in the agenda by way of a notice, it only requires a simple majority.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys do here. I don't know if
we do, and I think I've seen it in Robert's rules that it calls for the same. And that's currently, a number of our rules
Yeah.
follow the same.
Follow Robert's rules.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it just seemed to me just to start the whole thing, that would be something that I'd like to see changed.
Mhm.
And then included in the agenda, there's 9325.1, I think where it talks about the consent agenda.
.21.
.21, where it talks about the consent agenda. And I mean, to me, again, there's this whole, this whole section about the consent agenda, but it says the consent agenda will be prepared by the superintendent of schools in consultation with the chairman. Again, it's the agenda, it's the board meeting.
Yeah.
So I think, whoever the chairman is, it should be.
Should prepare it.
And even if there was, even if it said, the chair of the board, in cooperation, shall prepare an agenda, including the consent agenda for each regular meeting, and then maybe as a two, say, any member may request the chairman add an item to the agenda. If the chairman refuses, it may be added by a 2/3 majority.
Right.
But have references like on the other section 9121A, it says consult with superintendent planning board agenda, reference, 9323 and 9325A, I think, or 32521. Just so when people are looking at these things.
It's not inconsistent.
But it's just so you can find it,
Right.
because unless you've read these things,
Yeah.
and even we've read them,
Agreed.
it's like, how do we find, it says here, and I remember seeing it somewhere,
Yeah.
but it's like, I think there should be some references, so.
Yeah.
um,
I mean, listen, from my perspective, the final determination on the agenda should be made by the chairman.
Mhm.
Okay. So whether the council, or whether the Board of Education chairman prepares the agenda, or whether the superintendent prepares the agenda, subject to the approval of the chairman of the board, you guys are vastly more familiar than me with the mechanics of how it works here.
Yeah.
So whatever is better. It's just that from my perspective, I do think that it's got to be stated that it's the chairman that makes the final determination on what the agenda is.
So, and then, so I also wrote for the chairperson, instead of say consult with the superintendent planning the board's agenda, because that can be a little vague, I think, and open interpreted. I wrote create board's agenda and consult with the superintendent
Yeah.
in its planning,
Yeah.
which I thought clarifies the whole.
Yeah, again, it places the jurisdiction, the final jurisdiction and authorization on the chairperson
Mhm.
as opposed to the superintendent.
Right.
But that's okay, because in there, both for your consent agenda and for what you read regarding adding items to the agenda, any person can bring it up. It's not like, okay, this is the agenda and that's it.
Yeah,
Okay.
No, and I've been strong-armed at times on the council back in the day out of putting, but there was always that ability
Mhm.
to have things added
Mhm.
with a majority vote.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're
Right.
totally, but it also, the language where it talks about any member can add something, and if you have a difficult member who wants to just continually add stuff that doesn't pertain
Right.
to it, I think having the ability to have things added, but with a majority.
Yeah.
So that you're doing the board's business
Yeah,
instead of.
yeah, it should not be one member can have something added
Right.
at their request. No, it's gotta be
By a
with the,
vote.
Yeah.
right, exactly.
Yeah, because if you allow one member to do that, it can encumber the board's ability to get any business done,
Yeah,
because
no
they're
question.
investing.
Plus, don't forget that the Freedom of Information rules are enacted to allow the public to have the ability to see what's going on and be informed. So you have an agenda, you can't just willy-nilly change that agenda
Yeah.
at the meeting without giving at least notice, or at least with a majority of the body approving that. So
Yeah.
there's gotta be some fail-safe mechanisms.
And I always thought that, and I talked to the Cave attorney and Floyd briefly about it, and they said we can add items to the agenda, which I was always under the impression that you can't. you know, unless it's noticed or not of a substantive
No,
nature.
you, according to freedom of information, you can't. But freedom of information
Not during a special
will
meeting.
require it, one, to be a regular meeting.
Yes.
Not in a
Yeah.
special meeting. You
Yeah.
can't add anything at a special meeting.
And it talks about that in here.
And two, freedom of information requires a 2/3 vote
Mhm.
of the body.
Okay,
You are a little bit more lenient than that because you say, well, if it's in the agenda as, you know, this may be added,
Mhm.
so it's given fair notice to anybody, it can be added with a simple majority, not a 2/3 majority. So,
Yeah.
but
And-
that's freedom of information. That's
okay.
where.
And then, yeah, Robert's rules does say two, you know, it says a majority if presented in writing
Mhm.
and by 2/3 majority at the
Mhm.
meeting.
Mhm.
And I don't know if there's a time frame within which, and I think it's just 24-hour notice, Teresa, that we need to post anything?
Right, you 24-hour notice.
So anything by a simple majority would need to be given to the recording secretary 20, and I actually put,
Yeah.
I think I put 72 hours in here.
And which is probably wise because, yeah, 24 hours is what freedom of information requires.
Yeah,
But to put an agenda together takes a little while, so, you know, you don't want her to get this thing at 4 o'clock
Yeah.
on the day, 2 days before the meeting.
Yeah.
So 72 hours is safe.
Yeah.
If it's gonna be on the agenda, get it there by that point in
well,
time.
24 hours of our meetings at 6 o'clock on a Monday.
Yeah.
24 hours at 6 PM on a Sunday. I'm hoping if I send her an email at 6 o'clock on a Sunday, she's not answering it.
There you go.
You know?
Mhm.
And then she's gotta turn it around, put it out and get it out to the membership, and the membership have to try, and the membership has to be awake and aware,
Yeah.
paying attention because it's Sunday and it is kind of,
Yeah.
it's supposed to be a day off.
Yeah.
So that's why I thought 72 hours gave
Yeah.
it, you know, ample time.
Time to put it together, yeah, and get it out.
So I don't know if you guys want to, like, kind of create a list. I mean, I think this, for me, this was one of the first things I wanted to hit, but create a list and maybe vote on it to
Mhm.
send it to the board.
I think
Yeah.
we need to do it all at once.
Or maybe, I mean, take a vote on each item, I think, and then create a list that at one point we'll send. But I think my only other concern is I think we're gonna make some significant changes in here. And if we send the entire, I mean, we're gonna spend some time doing it. If we send the entire thing to the board and say, here, we're gonna be voting on this on Monday, by the, you know, and there's
No,
two readings.
we have to go through 2 reads.
Yeah, there's 2 reads, yeah.
Right. we
Right,
have to.
that's the same as the council,
Right.
it's almost like
I think
yeah,
if
it's 2
we,
weeks, two
Yeah.
meetings, yeah.
I think if we start at the beginning, go through, make the changes that we're looking to make, including, you know, I don't think anything needs to be made that drastically right away.
So, go ahead.
If we go through, make changes on a document, get a red line document for everybody, give them a red line document, go through the 2 reads, and then vote on it all at once.
Yep. So what I'd like to do then is, as we go through each item, I'll take a vote on it as to whether we want to add it
Yeah.
to our list
That's
of
fine.
of amendments. So we don't get at the end and we're like, oh, I don't remember, now we gotta refresh our memories and go through the.
That's true, that's a good idea.
So then I would make a motion, just for this first time, let me get back to the. So, on construction delivery of agenda.
What number?
That is 9323 and 9324, line item number 1. For it to read that the chairperson, in cooperation with the superintendent, shall prepare an agenda for each regular meeting. And then whether this is in that sentence, which it seems to be in that paragraph now, what changed, any member may request the chairman add an item on the agenda. If the chairman refuses, it may be added by a 2/3 vote at the meeting or with a signed document by simple majority presented to the recording secretary 72 hours prior to the start of the meeting. And actually, I would say that the chair, in cooperation with the superintendent, shall prepare an agenda and consent agenda for each regular meeting.
Isn't the consent agenda part of your
It
agenda?
is part of our.
It is, and there's a separate item in here where it talks about, there's a whole 2
Yeah.
pages over, 9.3.5.21.
Yeah.
Although it's part of it, the consent agenda is kind of characterized differently. And these are items that are not that don't necessarily, they're,
There should be simple,
Routine,
mundane,
standard items,
standard
right.
routine items.
but just to call it out, and then we can look at maybe whether we wanna remove this, you know, this as a whole, or include this in the agenda. But I would just kind of like to have the word consent agenda
Yeah.
included in there, so, just for clarification.
Okay.
Do you want me to keep
Yeah, and
this on
Teresa,
a clean copy and then we'll be able to redline it?
yeah, and Teresa's got all the notes. too,
No, I
so-
know.
Put it like in a Google Doc and then.
You wanna start with
Yeah,
that?
suggestions
Yeah.
can be made and then, I mean, that's like redlining, you
Yeah.
can put it in there,
Yeah.
everyone's suggestions show up.
Okay.
And who made it,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
then one person, whether it be the chair, can check off that, yes.
Okay.
And then in addition to that, on 912A, item number 2,
912, what, A?
A,
9121A.
I'm sorry, 9121A, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what it
So,
is? Okay.
number 2, I would like to change the wording to, create board's agenda and consult with the superintendent in its planning,
Mm-hmm.
with a reference to 9323 and 9325.21, which,
With the consent agenda.
yeah.
Mhm.
And then remove, because it's already stated, remove the line that, in the consent agenda that says the consent agenda will be prepared by the superintendent in consultation with the board chair.
Right.
That's 932.5.21.
Three. 9325.
That's 2 pages, that's a page after the agenda portion of it.
Mhm. Yeah. Consent agenda should be created and prepared by the chairperson.
So we could even
Inside.
strike that line, the entire line,
Mhm.
because in,
Under the consent agenda?
yeah, about the superintendent, under 9121A, where if it, or 9323, where it says the chairperson of the board
We'll create the agenda.
shall prepare an agenda and consent agenda
Right,
for,
right.
and then that way we don't need that in there as a
Correct.
clarification.
That's right.
And then in that section, if we could do a reference to the 9121A, and then vice versa on the 9121A, have a reference to the 9323.
9325.21.
Yeah. They
I-
all have to be referenced to each other, all
so,
3
okay,
sections.
so if we have all 3 referencing the other 2 sections,
Right.
Even if you reference it at like, you know, in the title of the document, if you just say refer to
yes.
these, at least it brings you to the other places.
Correct.
So they can be easily found.
Right.
Yeah.
So is that understandable, Teresa?
Yes.
So then I would make that motion.
I'll second.
Second, any other discussion?
I would just caution that you're putting it all onto one person, the chairman, and what if the chairman is rogue? What kind of situation would be in that position? Like, how would we be able to redirect the conversation if that happens?
So through a majority vote,
Mhm.
which is the you know,
Mhm.
the 2/3 at the meeting or the simple majority prior to the
Because
meeting?
with the superintendent, they're not a voted in position, they're apolitical, they're supposed to be a
But this-
political position.
But this isn't their meeting.
That's right. You also run the risk, because it's the Board of Education that is really the board of directors for the school
Mhm.
district. You also, if you leave it just to the superintendent and not accept the notion that it's the board that's above the superintendent, you run the risk of allowing the superintendent to put on the agenda only what he or she wants.
No, I believe a collaboration would be appropriate, so that's why I think that we still should keep the superintendent in that, because
I think you did.
But
Okay.
okay, I just wanna make sure that
Uh,
it shouldn't just be a chairperson deciding, I think that needs to be the collaboration of the
Uh,
chairperson with the superintendent.
Yeah, unless I misunderstood what
Okay,
Mike was
I just wanna
saying.
make sure.
He said something like that the chairman shall prepare the agenda in consultation with the superintendent.
In cooperation with,
Yeah.
but it is,
Okay, I
it
just
is.
wanna make sure because, you know, it could be 20 years down the road where it'd still be having that same problem, so we wanna make sure that
Well,
we.
Yeah, so being that it is the board's meeting, the chairman sets the agenda, but he does it in cooperation with, so it's the board's final decision on what they discuss and don't discuss, but the chair relies on, and it talks in here in responsibilities where the superintendent will offer information to be placed, where actions need to be taken. And if it came to a single, if it came to a rogue chairman, there's the back door that allows members to add items to the agenda, by a vote.
Yeah, but then that's adding it, but is there a way to take off items if they're putting things on there that are not appropriate, or, if the chairman is totally rogue
Yeah.
and adding things that are not responsible, how do we correct that as a board?
So that's done through a majority vote.
Okay, you could take it off the same way you would put it on.
So if I make, as a chair, if I said item 4, whatever it is, blue colored toilet paper.
Okay.
And the board was like, this is stupid, we don't, and then so you would say, I make a motion to approve, get a second, all in favor, 0, all against, 7, motion fails, 0-7. And then
And then it goes away.
so through the vote, or.
So it's a 2/3 though to take it off?
No,
Okay.
it's the
just
majority, yeah.
Okay, and it doesn't have to be 72
But-
hours.
but
The
what-
problem
what
is
Mike-
that once it's on an agenda,
Yeah.
it's been noticed 24 hours before. You
Yeah.
receive your pony, 24 business hours before, so to get something removed at that point, it's already posted. You can't change the agenda at that point until you're sitting the meeting.
Okay.
But there are options, like Mike said.
Right.
You make a motion, it's on the agenda because, for a purpose. That purpose is gonna require a vote or approval of the Board of Education. So one simple way is, don't approve it, vote
Right.
against it. But the other things we've done over on the town side is, before you even get to that, somebody says, this is not appropriate, I make a motion to strike this from the agenda. Get a second, majority vote?
I think motion is strike, there's no discussion.
Yeah, I don't think there's any
And
discussion.
it's a two-thirds vote to strike. There's also a 2/3 vote to call the question, which means there's no discussion on it. So if you're talking, I can get or if the crazy person is talking and rambling on, and I can say, Mr. Chair, I make a motion to call the question. This discussion stops at that point. Chairman calls a vote. If it's a 2/3 vote, discussion stops, and then we go to a vote. And the vote says, there's a crazy motion, I can't support it. Then it's a simple majority just to kill it. So there's procedural parliamentary processes in which to stop.
They all default back to Robert's rules,
Yeah.
unless you
No, I
put
understand, I just
something
wanna make sure
specific
that
in
we're
here.
not putting all the solace on one person to make these decisions.
No,
and that
no,
there's
no,
a
that's
No.
not,
A
that's
sale
not
fee,
happening.
okay,
Yeah. So there's two ways. It says in consult
yeah,
to consult with, which means you need to talk to them. The chairman doesn't necessarily, because the superintendent says it, doesn't necessarily. But there's a way that board
Okay.
members can have items added in addition. So there's a couple of remedies, and then there's some parliamentary solutions as well.
Yeah. And as far as the consent agenda goes, it's already in there. It's a decent idea to bundle all of these things that are routine or should be routine. But you've already got, a safety net there, because any member can say, hey, I think we ought to take this off the consent agenda and put it on the regular agenda for discussion, and it'll happen. The rules say that.
And that's only a single person.
One single person.
Can request it. Once it's requested, it comes off of the consent. So
Correct.
it's not even. It doesn't even.
Doesn't even need a vote.
Yeah.
It's just automatic. No.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. All right, we got one thing done. does I've got a whole bunch, Kristen, you have some places you wanna go?
You
or-
jump around too much for me. I'd like to start at the beginning
Okay.
and move through it, so.
No, that was just.
No,
one
I
of the-
know, I get it, I totally get it, I think if we start through from the beginning
Mhm.
and move through, it'll probably not impede Teresa so much too.
No, you're,
Just start, just one quick note in the very first, in section 3, duties, 9,000, section A.
mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Insure should be ensure. ENSUR, number 5.
Number 5.
So, and the other question to that, I also, ensure each child in the town between the ages of 5 and 18 attending school in accordance with state law, but with the special ed, that's now 23, I think, and so do we need to make a special note of that?
Special ed is 23?
The Strive program is up to age 23. I don't know that by state statute though we're required to go,
I'd have to check with Heather on that one.
and it's also not 18. It's still the age of graduation.
And so if it said something like ensure each child in the town between the ages in accordance with state law.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
the statutes must.
I think the statute's got a starting date, and it's
And
not
that
even
starting
age
date's-
5. It's actually first grade. Kindergarten's not even required. So, and it's not 18. I graduated at 17. So
And that starting date is being changed.
that starting date is being changed. So I say
Yeah.
ensure each child in the town is attending school in accordance with state law.
accordance
Take
with
the
state, yeah.
take out the
Yeah.
ages 5 to 18
Mhm.
because ours ranges much more than that now, and
Mhm.
so just
I agree.
take out the ages of 5 to 18.
And between the ages in accordance with state law.
In accordance with state law, yeah. I made copies of some of the state statutes, but I don't think I made a copy of anything that pertains to that.
I don't think there's a starting age. A child must be in school by their, I actually think it's the 6th birthday. I don't think it's the 5th birthday, and I don't have the statute right in front of me, but
I thought it was 5th, but I could be wrong.
that's the age they can start. But kindergarten's not required. They can start in first grade. So, and then again, it's not necessarily 18. We have programs that go to 23. I graduated at 17. So
Yeah.
So, do you wanna make that motion?
motion to change the first sentence of section 3 duties, number 5 under section 9000A to ensure each child in the town attends school in accordance with state law and make available to each child in the town of school age and of suitable mental and physical condition public day schools for the period required by law,
Mhm.
and provide the necessary transportation of children.
A second?
Second.
Seconded by Jill. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Number 8, so we had talked about this 10-151?
I have
Oh,
this too.
So whether we leave that here or again make reference,
It's in 4 different places.
yeah, so there's 4 different places, you and I talked about it, and I know I got I got a legal opinion from Floyd that in the end, our board, based on our policies, has final authority over the hiring. But that wherever these things are, either we keep them all in one place, or if they're in multiple places,
Oh, I
we make a reference to them.
I think it says something different in each section. So under that section, it says employ and dismiss teachers of the school subject to provisions, and that's a Connecticut Journal Statute 10-151. And then in 9005 under the bylaws, number 9, it says insist on regular and impartial evaluation of all staff, which is not necessarily the responsibility of the board. It's the responsibility of the administration. And then in 9011A, it says selecting and evaluating all professional staff under the superintendent. So that contradicts what's before that, and then under 9012A, there's several references to determining number, classification, duties, and remuneration of employees, establishing policy for employment, providing appraisal of the performance of personnel, which are all slightly different things. You know,
Yeah.
if we're providing a form for, appraisal of personnel, that's one thing, but we shouldn't be doing any reviews. We should.
No, you shouldn't be.
No, but it's referenced in here is what I
Yeah.
mean. So I think that if we're gonna take all of those out of where they are and put it all into one section under personnel practices or something along those lines, we'll probably clarify it a lot more as opposed to jumping around.
Yeah, I agree. I
And
agree.
So do we maybe want to, for the next meeting?
have a proper write-up.
Well, just go through these and get a, go through, I mean, I've made notes too, I use number 3 as the
Yeah.
hiring, but go through and just get those all classified and see
I can do that.
what they are,
Yeah.
and then where we want to put them, if it's, let's take it out of this section, let's create a section, or if we have it in multiple spots, again, just have a reference, but like you said, there's about 7 or 8 different spots where it talks about it.
Right.
It's not necessarily in clear.
Even if it's,
clear-
just listed under, section 4, personnel policy, whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
But let's put it all in one place. I
Yeah.
think it'll make more sense.
Make a lot
Put it-
clearer,
Yeah.
sure.
what the superintendent's responsibilities are, what the board's responsibilities are,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and how we're gonna outline that. I think that's, part of what we've been working on.
But one
personnel,
larger
too.
section where, like on the
Right.
first page where it says, if it said something like employee dismissed teachers of school subject to provisions 10-51, section 932
Right.
of our bylaw, whatever it is, so
Yeah.
that if there's any reference of it to it, there's a main body that quantifies the whole deal with little sections that refer to that.
I think
Main
this
bylaw.
kind of section calls for its own,
Yeah.
instead of referencing back and forth in
Yeah.
8 different
Yeah, that
places.
makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
I can write something up for the next
Yeah.
meeting.
And then the other one in this section, I had attend all meetings and so far on 9000B. And these also go to how we gather information.
Yeah.
And I talked to Floyd about nothing in here says we're not allowed to, I couldn't find anything in there that specifically says we're not allowed to talk to teachers and staffs. It says we cannot interfere with the administrative role of the superintendent. But it doesn't say we can't, it talks about how it's our obligation to be knowledgeable, and it's not the exact words, knowledgeable of all things Board of Ed. And there's a number of places here where it talks about gathering that information.
Yeah.
And so like number 10 says, attend all board meetings and be responsible for becoming informed on any and all issues coming before the board, as well be prepared to discuss and act on all agenda items, which to me is, in order to be properly informed, you need to have discussions, and if our information is coming through a funnel as opposed to a spigot, the information we get is be very limited. So, and I've said all along, that all members should have equal access to all information and have the ability to gather that information without being obstructive to the daily goings on. But so that would be, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things like that, and I'd actually, if you wanted to, Kristen, do the employment thing, I can come back with a list of the information gathering pieces of this that maybe we can clarify, because it's all over the place. And-
Right.
And it's, if you read the whole thing, and as I went through, I specifically looked for those things, and again, didn't find any, but just so we can clarify it, so it's not check 20 different spots, each one is slightly different.
Yeah, I don't think that you'll find anything anywhere in any statute, state statute that says that Board of Education members can't talk to teachers.
Mm.
Obviously, the superintendent has responsibility and authority for the administrative
Mhm.
Conversations,
operation
right.
of the school district. So members of the Board of Education cannot talk to teachers, evaluate teachers in that sense. Cannot recommend that a teacher be fired or somebody be promoted or something like that. That's not your purview.
Not the job, no.
That's right. That belongs to the superintendent.
And part of
Right.
this, and one of these, what you were talking about says we evaluate.
Right,
Yeah.
one,
Yeah,
one of
yeah.
them says that we have,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd like to go.
I think what it was meant to say though is that we have input into the form of evaluation, not the
Right, that would
actual
make sense.
evaluation.
That would make sense.
Which does fall
And
under.
there's something in here that says that if the board sees that an administrative policy is not in line with the board policy.
Right.
The board can.
Change
I don't know if it was demand, but.
Yeah, I think the board has, we'll
can be
we'll
brought
look
to
at
the
it when we get to it, but I think it said that the board has the power to change that.
Yeah.
But, well, I was gonna bring, at some point in time, I think you gotta define what an administrative regulation is.
Yeah.
As opposed to a policy or anything, but that's later on, that comes later
How
on.
about if you tackle that?
Okay.
From a legal, I mean,
Yeah.
that's more of a legal standpoint?
Right, yeah.
So just sort of.
Before we
we'll
go
find-
there,
we'll
do
find
we
some
have
homework
anything
for you.
else in 9000B?
Yes.
You had the visitation last time you had brought up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I have in the information gathering process. So that's one of the things that I did talk to the attorneys on what our legal rights are. I know you need to be fobbed into or led into a school. So we as board members can't just walk up to a
in,
school
right.
and say, let me in,
Let me in.
I'm the board member. You know, so what are our legal rights? And again, how do we do that so we can get a true look at what's going on in the school? But not interfere with the daily actions of that school. So that's one of the things that I did have there as well.
Well, let's talk about that then. How do we?
Well, let me do that, let me bring that
you
back
wanna
next week.
do that? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the other thing I had in there as well was, understand the board had no authority beyond which is exercise of board meetings. That sentence has gotta be in 20 different places in this, you know, so, I don't know.
I think that it belongs there. It belongs under duties,
But,
but it doesn't belong in 20 other different places.
Yeah.
So maybe as we come across it, we
Yeah.
strike it from other places.
well, maybe Jill, do you wanna,
Go through and.
go
pull
through
all
and
those, yeah.
find that sentence or
Yeah.
that similar language and,
Yep.
and then again, it's a lot
That
of
should
the
all
stuff
go
is.
under that powers and duties of the Board of Education.
I think if we eliminate the repetitive stuff, this book will shrink in half.
Yeah.
And then as we so, but that's, I don't know, if that's all I had on that page.
Okay. Let's go that one. This is gonna be Jill. This is gonna be me. 34.
And then, so on the next page, item number 12.
9005, right?
9005A, item number 12 is a repeat of that sentence we just talked about.
Correct.
Yeah,
There's also number 9 there, which goes under the personnel stuff.
And so that would be you, Kristen?
Right.
Yep. Number 11, it says, and I don't know if this is enforceable, so, and I know, so support decisions, all decisions by the board to the community once a decision has been reached.
I mean, you don't check your constitutional rights at the door when you become a member of the.
Right.
So, you know, I don't think you could legally enforce it. If a vote is taken and you don't agree with the outcome of that vote, I don't think you can legally enforce you not to be able to say, I don't agree with that, I support it, I just.
So last year, we disagreed with the budget, all right, and I was told you can't speak out against it. This year, you guys disagree with the budget, and I would never say as the chairman, or if the superintendent said you have to, I would never say you don't have the right to speak out against
I
the
think
vote.
it's really important, a dissenting view is very important to
Right.
be able
Of course.
to.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
So
So,
let's strike that. Let's
so
I think-
is
Right.
it the belief, is it your belief constitutionally that is not an enforceable policy?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
I'd like to make a motion to strike number 11 under 9005A.
So, and just to, so I would like the motion to include in any other spot where this language is
And
included.
any other spot where this language is included.
Because it is repetitive.
Mhm.
So the motion was made, second.
A second.
Second by Jill. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
Okay, so we'll strike that. This may cause discussion. In the beginning, under this 9005A, the trust of the public is essential to the Board of Education. Board members must work with effectively together and with others in the community to act upon what is right rather than what is popular. We don't have determination of what is popular. Again, I feel like that's checking your rights at the door.
Well, but not only that, I'm gonna get the sentiment, but it's a little bit vague in the sense that who knows what's right? Well, what's right to me may not be right to you.
I think board members must work effectively together and with others in the community
To act in the best interest of the
to back
school
to
district or
yes,
something like that.
along those lines.
And I think either way you word it, it's more of a philosophical
Right.
statement than a
Yeah.
legal or binding
It's
statement.
not it's a philosophical statement, I think.
Yeah.
It's a.
Yeah, but what I think is popular isn't what you think is popular, isn't, and vice versa, it's.
Yeah, I would support.
So do we wanna maybe look at rewording? Do you wanna?
I just think,
Give us some thought,
I think board members must work effectively together and with others in the community to act upon what is in the best interests, of the students and staff in the school district.
Or what is believed to be the best interest, or?
To act upon, yeah.
Or just simple, to further the best interest
Of the school district.
But again, and again, that might even go towards the support of district, of decisions by the Board of Ed, once a decision is made, because what is the best interest? Your idea of what's right is not my
Right.
idea of what's not.
Precisely.
So it's,
Yeah.
So to act upon what is believed.
I mean, I would almost even say
To
to
be.
act in a manner that is, I don't know, that
I think just to act upon what is believed to be in the best interests of the school district.
Yeah.
to always act with the intent of finding what is best
That's
for. I don't know the best way to say it,
Or
but.
furthering the best interest of the
I
school.
think that it goes on to define that
Hmm.
a little later. Integrity is first, discerning what is right and wrong, that all of that comes after that. I think this is kind of an overviewing statement in that,
Second act, and then it says second, acting upon what you have discerned, even at a personal cost, and third, saying openly that you are acting on your understanding of what is right from wrong.
right.
And again, it's integrity, it's philosophical, so this is not necessarily
Well, and then
But-
underneath
by
it,
no
it
means.
defines it even further, you know what I mean? First and greatest concern, educational welfare, rendering all decisions based solely on judgment, and, it goes on to define that. I just think that saying, that word popular bothers me there.
yeah, okay. Do you have something, or you wanna think on it to give it?
No, board members must work effectively together and with others in the community to act upon what is believed to be in the best interests of the school district.
Okay. You guys okay with it? Any thoughts on it, or
So moved.
motion by Mr. Dell, second by Mr. Clark?
Not
Jill, do you have
repeating that
any-
again.
I agree with the popular word because it is vague and everyone has a different opinion of popularity, so.
Are you okay with her
Yeah.
amendment to that? Okay. Any other discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Number 2 is again another statement that is in a number of different spots.
Yeah.
So we, I can make a little note, maybe look through it, but number 3 and 4 are items that I'm going to look at as far as in gathering information.
Yep.
Number 6, I just wrote BOE bylaw or policy. not engage in any activity that conflicts or raises a reasonable question of conflict with the responsibilities of the school system. Employees, and I'm not sure how this is meant, employees in full recognition of the public trust vested in the educational system shall not exploit the educational institution for personal gain or abuse his or her own post with student for private privilege.
I don't know what that needs to be in there. We're not employees.
The main, yeah, and that was the thing, is it more of a policy regarding to employee behavior?
I'm sure that's in policy.
I mean, the first sentence, not engage in any activity
Right.
that conflicts or raises a reasonable question of conflict with their responsibilities in the school system. But the school system would mean employees. You know, we don't, or no?
Not necessarily,
Okay.
okay? And I don't know
agree with
whether
Tom, first one.
you have a conflict of interest
We do.
policy like the town does. So for example, the town says, as a councilman, for example, you can't use your vote
Mhm.
on the council to enhance your own personal gain.
Correct.
Okay?
And that's said several times in this.
Or your, you know, your spouse's or your family's personal gain. You can't act in a manner that does not, you can't act in a manner that does not fulfill your duties, but where your purpose is in some other manner.
I'm almost wondering if this section was like copied and pasted from somewhere, and that the word employees was supposed to be replaced with Board of Education members, because if you replace it with Board of Education members, it makes full sense, so.
But it says, personal gain or abuse his or own post with students for private advantage. As Board of Ed members, I mean, that's more like a teacher, because
Yeah.
teachers interact with the
Right.
student. But a board member, if it said, you know, abuse his or her own post with students or staff, you know.
Yeah, I think that Kristen may be right. That may have been cut and pasted from someplace. Because it refers to employees and the types of things that employees do.
Right,
As opposed to board members.
right.
So it probably doesn't belong here.
Yeah. I thought it was more of a policy, an employment policy, as opposed to a board bylaw.
But I was gonna say, yeah, that wouldn't be, it makes sense if that were the case.
Yeah.
It
Right.
belongs in that type of a
Right.
framework.
And it's in that type of, it's in
Okay.
those policies.
So would that mean we'd wanna make a motion to strike that?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think you'd want to make a motion to strike the second sentence, not,
Okay.
the first sentence to me
it's fine.
does pertain to board
Yes,
members.
absolutely.
Okay. Do we want it to say school system, or, do we wanna change that word school system?
To school district.
District, I would
School
say.
district.
Yeah.
I would say district.
Okay. So then the motion would be on 9005A, item number 6, to change the last word in the first sentence from system to district,
Yes,
and to strike the entire
second.
that's all it says, the entire second sentence.
Second.
Second by Ms. Padel, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Okay, so that was it for that page. And I think a lot of, what is, the statement of integrity, I think a lot of it, I think most of the 2 pages over, under the accountability page, it's either repetitive or, most of it's stated in the statement of integrity. We can go through that when we get there, and a lot of it talks about, you know, what the public's accountable for, and it's
Yeah.
not really a board bylaw. I mean, that, again,
Can I also make a motion that we add page numbers to this document?
As
Yes.
opposed to,
Yeah.
yeah.
As opposed to just reference the,
Yeah.
the
Very,
reference
very
of
helpful.
yeah.
Okay.
So, but Teresa,
Teresa, can we add page numbers to
so
this?
just based on that that statement, I don't want you to go print a whole.
No,
new-
we don't need to
with
do
page
that now.
numbers. But when we get to the final draft.
Yeah.
We could do a new table of contents and add page numbers
Yeah,
as well.
or even just have pages at the bottom, not even with a
Yeah, just-
index.
So
but-
you
Yeah.
can see
Yeah.
where to go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you do definitely want to keep the references because they're
Yeah.
all specific references to
Yeah.
the
Correct,
bylaws.
correct.
But it would be easier if it,
But right now, I mean, the statement of integrity is 9005A and 9005B, and that's more in reference to
Right.
page number than it is, I
Right.
think, anything else.
Agreed.
So then, the motion would be to have page numbers added to the bottom of each page,
Correct.
and with no other reference in an index or table of contents,
to the.
other than just a page number at the bottom.
Well, you.
We'll have to see how it shakes out as a
Okay.
document. Leave the
Okay.
table of leave the table of contents out of it for now.
Okay, so
We'll
with
see how it
a
shakes
motion to add a page number to the bottom of each page.
Correct.
Yeah,
Second.
Now, second, Glenn.
Yes, okay.
All right, is all those in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion, all in favor? Motion passed unanimously. So then going over to 911A, page number 21.
okay.
What?
It's the next page over. There's the authority of the board members, which
Oh,
again.
9010.
Which again has some of those statements about commands. Some of those, most of those I thought were okay in there, on the
I didn't have
authority
any
of members.
comments on this page.
No. But the next page, I don't know that we need to have any of this.
Where are you?
Any of the accountability,
9011B.
I don't think it's our job, I mean, the board is accountable section, but I don't think the public, the superintendent, the administration, teachers, parents, students, I don't think any of that is pertainable to the bylaws of the board.
No, because the rules, like the superintendent, providing creative professional leadership and counsel in all aspects of school district. That, again, I think should be more of a policy and not that a bylaw, that's not how we run.
Should be a
our-
hiring authority of the board.
Yeah, but I mean, leadership, council, and management in all aspects of school district programs, being responsive to the board's desires concerning regarding the quality and performance of school district. That's not necessarily a bylaw.
It's not the board's bylaw,
Yeah.
that's the superintendent's bylaws.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, yeah.
not that they're necessarily the superintendent's bylaws because it's an at-will employee, but
Yeah, but so I don't know that we need to have any of this entire section here.
well, the board accountability stuff is all listed in the statement of integrity too, so.
Yes, and I wrote redundant on that part.
Except for the selecting and evaluating of the superintendent of schools, but that can be added under duties.
Yes,
Maybe we should add the board stuff under the duties of the board in 9,000, section 9,000.
before we do that, can we look at that and just
Yeah.
see what's already, I didn't look through, I just wrote redundant and I thought most of it was already stated, but before we totally strike that,
Yeah, I think, I would like to read it further, if
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah,
We can
oh, yeah.
read to- Okay.
9.
But as far as the other,
9011A, board duties.
Yeah, just quickly looking at 9,000, the items listed there are more specific in nature. These are
yeah, but one of them is selecting and evaluating the superintendent of schools.
here, yes,
Right.
yeah, which should be as, in 9,000.
Right.
A.
Yeah, but so, I would say we, at this point, make a motion to strike everything except the board is accountable for.
Yeah.
And review that, to see where it can be moved to.
Do you wanna read that whole section over before we strike those sections, or?
I think we could do away with the superintendent and the public, because we have no jurisdiction over that.
And then the next
And then
page,
the next
the next
page
page
is
is,
the-
as well as B, which is in the accountability section.
Right,
You know, it talks about the students, the parents.
right,
None of that stuff are bylaws of the board.
correct.
Right.
So, I would make a motion to strike everything.
Can, before you make the motion, can we hold off on that? I just wanna,
Yeah.
I wanna see what, the Connecticut General Statutes 10-220 says.
Yeah,
Do you have that, John?
I don't think I made a copy of 220.
Can we hold off on that till the
Okay.
next meeting, so I
Yeah.
can?
Just give me a minute.
So I was right, strike it next meeting.
220, yeah, I did.
I'm just wondering if we have to reference that for some reason.
Well, I'll tell you what it, I'll tell you what it says quickly, because it's a lengthy statute.
Yeah.
So basically it says, each local board of education shall maintain good public elementary and secondary schools, implement the educational interests of the state as defined in section 10-4A, and provide such other educational activities as in its judgment will best serve the interests of the school district. Then it goes on to say a bunch of specific things that the boards will do. Shall provide an appropriate learning environment for all of its students, which includes adequate instructional books, supplies, materials, equipment, staffing, facilities, technology. Provide an equitable allocation of resources among the schools. Provide proper maintenance of facilities, safe school setting, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole laundry list of
So,
those specific
That's also
things.
referenced in 9000A,
Yeah, I was
or
gonna say,
9000, so
under duties,
we,
that's on the, yeah.
okay, I'm fine with that then, we
So-
can strike
so-
the rest of it.
So maybe we should, you wanna strike everything but
But
that?
the board,
Okay, and then we can maybe take the 10-220.
And just reference it.
it is referenced in 9000, right?
Oh, okay.
But
Okay.
use that maybe to create a more concise
List of the.
duties, 9000A,
Yep.
you know, so, all right, so make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to, strike, sections from bylaw section 9011A, and the sections are as follows: the public is accountable for, the superintendent is accountable for, the administration, the teachers, and other employees are accountable for, parents are accountable for, and the students are accountable for, leaving the board is accountable for to be reviewed at the next meeting.
There's a second.
I second.
Mr. Clark, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. So 90, you guys good going to 6:30 or?
Yeah.
Okay. 9012A, again, number 6 refers to, next page.
Go ahead.
Number 6 refers to the hiring, so that.
Yeah, I've got that on my list.
Number 7 says to provide for the appraisal of
Oh.
the appointments of personnel. What does
Same
that-
thing.
What does that mean? I wrote provide for, does that mean?
So that's
I mean, you really only evaluate the superintendent, right?
Correct, but that providing for the appraisal of the performance of personnel is like the evaluation form, and that's all coming down through CABE right now, where they're changing the evaluation structure of the administration, the teachers, all the personnel, and that will come through the board.
So there'll be a uniform form to
There'll
do
be a
that?
uniform system for that,
Okay.
yeah. Maybe it needs to be worded differently, but all of that I think would fall under the personnel duties section that I'm gonna look at. I have those
Okay.
number 5, 6, and 7. I have all checked off to
Okay.
work with that.
Mhm.
In adding to that, number 3 should not say to elect a superintendent. It
Right.
should be to select a superintendent.
Right,
It's not an elected position. It's an at-will position.
correct.
You should say to select and hire?
To select and hire.
Yeah. Yeah, all of which is in the statutes too.
And that statute is also referenced at the bottom of this section.
Correct,
So
correct.
So, and then I had a note on 13B. It says the school district shall finance at a reasonable level an educational program designed to achieve this end. But my question being, it says that the school board shall finance. Should that be
school district.
fund or?
I think
I mean, it's just a technicality, but.
I think the school district shall provide for.
Provide funding.
No, I don't even think we should put, because we're not providing the funding.
Because you don't provide the funding, you request it. but
Correct.
It's actually the town council.
The
that
school
provides
district
the
shall
funding.
provide for
So then-
at a reasonable. I don't even know that makes sense in here.
And then it goes on, so the next part goes on to say, it says, at this end, to make reasonable provisions to implement the educational interests of the state as defined by law, so that the school district shall finance a reasonable level. And I mean, I don't know if any of this makes sense. To make reasonable provisions to implement the educational interests of the state as defined by law, so that each child shall have for the period prescribed in the statutes equal opportunity to receive a suitable program. of
That we're gonna
education.
have to keep.
That's okay. The school district shall finance at a reasonable level an educational program designed to achieve this end.
That's in reference to A,
Yep.
suitable education
But the
experiences.
word finance, the school
Right.
district shall provide educational opportunities for its
Well,
students
you
to, and this is, and I don't know if this is, I think this should be worded differently. I don't know, maybe it states, the school district shall provide educational opportunities for its students to interact with students and teachers from other racial, ethnic, and economic backgrounds. I don't know,
That's also
Is-
provided for in Connecticut General
and
Statutes.
is that DEI?
No, that's Connecticut
No,
General
that's
Statutes.
statutory.
Is that just,
Yeah.
that's an exact reading of the statute?
I don't know if it's an exact reading, but there's a similar concept in the statutes that's required.
That definition is, that's 53A-65, that's, I'm sure it's gonna fall under that.
Okay. And then the last one, you had mentioned, the word provide a safe setting in accordance with statutes, maintain records of allegations of reports.
Right, all that's in the statute,
Okay.
that's directly from the statute.
Okay, so that, I mean, that's, the word finance really
Well,
was the.
you can say the school system shall,
Provide,
or request funding at a reasonable level.
I mean, request funding would be more, I think, because this is what we do.
That's what you
We
do.
request funding. We don't provide
I
the
don't know that it
funding.
makes sense, I don't know that it makes sense.
You know, I request funding, I mean, maybe we can look that up in the statute and see if it reads exactly that way.
Yeah, okay, I'll take a look at it.
Not for now, you can do
Yeah.
it later.
Yeah.
But whether it's request funding or seek out grants, you know, I don't know,
I'll look at it,
I don't know what the proper language is.
13B, I'm gonna put your name next to that, John.
okay.
Statute.
I have one other note on that. 9,000A number 5. So then, yeah, I had does a lot of that go back to 9,000 A, section 5, you said ensure each child in the town make available to each town, the town may suitable public day schools for the period required. Is a lot of that required in that section? Is it?
It
is
does, but
covered in it?
I think
Or-
that this 9,000 or 9,012 lays it out like the statute does. I
Okay.
think that we've gotta be careful in deleting that. I mean, we may want that repetitive in there.
Or does this cover it, and then we don't need the 9,000A, section 5?
Well, I
so
think
that's
that,
sure.
I think that 9,000A, section 5 is
Just-
kind of like a summary of
Okay.
what's to come, and then it's broken down by each specific bylaw.
Yeah, and again, just trying to eliminate redundancies, but if it
No, I think
if
this
it makes
is
more
more,
sense.
I think this is more in line with the statutes. I'd be hesitant to take that out.
Okay. So that's it on that page. So 90-20, public statements. The only note I had there was, in the second paragraph, about the third sentence down, it starts with releases to the press. It says releases to the press and brief summaries of the board meeting actions prepared for distribution to staff members and parents, guardians are regarded as appropriate media of information for meeting the requirements of this bylaw. So what are the requirements of this bylaw, and it's about dissemination of information?
Yeah,
Um,
so.
I think that's part of your information gathering section.
So, releases to the press and brief summaries of the board meeting actions. Minutes are funny, you know, the statutes require minutes to be kept, but very bare bones minutes, only what motions are made, what the vote was, and who voted on it, that's it. And some minutes are that bare bones. But,
Yeah, the council-
like,
council.
the council minutes are a little bit more than that. The
Ours are.
housing authority minutes, oh my God, it's like, you know, Mr. Dell said this, and this one said that, and this one said this, and it goes on for 6 pages. So, minutes are, I don't know what your minutes look like, I guess is what I'm
They
saying.
look like
So-
play by play.
Yeah, they're
We've-
play by play.
We've tried it simple in the past, and then we've had
People
boards
get
that
it.
will say, well, I said and you didn't put in there. And
Yeah.
then it's really what what the board prefers.
Right,
Yeah.
but if your minutes are that extensive, well, doesn't that serve as, brief summaries of the board meeting
Yeah.
actions?
Well, and they're all recorded at this point.
And the
Yeah, that's
videos
true.
are on
But
our
it says
website.
releases to the press as well are regarded as meeting our requirement to get out the information. Is that, it says teachers and staff,
I mean, do you regularly send out press releases?
No.
Press usually picks it up if it's popular.
I would
or
assume.
Something that's in
Right.
the know right now, and then what we do here is if something is voted on by the board, then communication goes out from here
Yeah.
to staff and
Yeah.
families.
Yeah, internally, that'll happen, and it's for the public, again, if you've got fairly detailed minutes, it's all in there, I don't think you would be making a business to send out press releases.
No, but I just the way, I'm just trying to understand what its intent is,
I don't know.
I think that sentence could be removed because I think it's, the rest of it states what we need. We're not necessarily releasing information to the press voluntarily.
Right. Comprehensive program throughout the school district committee for prompt dissemination of information about decisions made to all board members and meetings. The minutes are made, I think are posted, everything. It talks about all the meetings being recorded.
Yeah.
And that those minutes are, so, I don't know that we need that sentence, or?
No, I don't think we do.
I don't think so.
Okay. Is there a motion to strike?
From releases
From-
to
Yeah, the sentence that starts with releases and ends with of this bylaw.
Yeah.
second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Okay, strike. Alright, next page. So in advocacy, again, local board members must, it says local board members must help the CABE deliver its message to legislators. Must.
I mean, I made a note here that this is all very subjective to, I don't know that it's necessarily a bylaw or something that we have to have as a standard.
One thing I liked in here was number 3, which we just started doing.
I'm talking about that top section.
Yeah,
before,
no, but
you know what I
yeah,
mean?
Yep. And I think there are parts that talks about how the board should. I don't know that it's bad to have it in there, but it's.
No, I don't know that it's bad. I just think a lot of it's subjective and isn't necessarily like a, advocacy is engagement in the political process at local, state, and national levels to influence the public policies that affect boards of education and school children. Well, yes, we do that, but is that necessarily engagement in the political process, or
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, even the first sentence, the Board of Ed believes that advocacy is a critical part of its activity and important responsibility of school board members.
That's okay.
But says who? Really, if you I understand the intent of the statement, but if you read that, the Board of Ed believes that, well, says who? Are you telling me that that's what I believe? Or are you saying the Board of Ed should advocate, or should make a critical part of its activity?
Local school board members must help CABE deliver its message to legislators. No, I don't always agree with CABE, so.
Yeah, I get that, I agree. I know what you're talking about.
And the school board members respected by legislators, not always true, are powerful advocates for the responsibility. Again, this is more of a statement of a belief statement than a
Right.
bylaw.
That's it's very subjective, and
Yeah, you are all members of the Board of Education, I'm not, but I don't think it's necessary to have a bylaw that tells me, as a member of the Board of Education, what advocacy I have to make, what buttons I have to push, what policies I have to forward.
Well, I think, you know, that in that section below where it starts numbering out the ways to fulfill the advocacy
Yeah.
role, it says, you know, join a broad advocacy network, including CAVE, at the state and national levels. I think that's saying enough, as opposed to you have to deliver the message of CAVE.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I think that,
Well,
Agree.
even number 6 says agree as a board in its lobbying effort on the particular issues and tactics to be given priority. You know, again, is that a majority vote that's taken, or
Would
is it?
seem to be.
You know, but it's agree as a board. Well, we don't agree as a board. We agree as the majority of the board.
Right.
Typically, I mean, there
Right.
are some, not often,
I know.
unanimous votes, but, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'm sure Jill has some things she'd like to advocate for that we don't necessarily, and vice versa.
Well, also, a lot of legislation comes down without funding, so I think some of that is, we wanna
Right.
make sure we allow ourselves the opportunity to advocate
to
for
talk
that.
back at that, yeah, to go back at legislators with that, yeah.
But even if you believe strongly in something,
Mhm.
this kind of almost says, no, you can't do it because the board didn't agree on it.
And CAVE didn't say you could.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, Kate might say, you know, again, the toilet paper has to be blue, and you're like, no, I want the toilet paper to be yellow. Well, now that's saying, well, Kate says blue, so you gotta go advocate for blue, and the board agrees that it should be yellow, so you can't talk to your legislators about it being blue.
Can
And
I
I
take-
notice there's no legal reference.
Yeah, there's no legal reference to that. Can I take a stab at rewriting this section for the next meeting?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think there's a little bit too much, we're getting towards the end of our hour,
And a half.
and a half, but.
I'll take a stab for next meeting
Okay.
at rewriting some of that section, or shortening that section at least.
Okay.
Or maybe adding it to other sections so that we can
I-
eliminate it altogether. I don't
And
know.
I wonder if in duties, there is a section about advocacy in here, or if
I
that,
don't think so.
if that should be placed in, there should be some truncated version of it that we place in.
Well, we can leave it as this section, and I'll truncate it and just reference the other sections at the very least. But
Yeah.
I think we need to,
but-
like
but-
Jill said, we need to kind of give ourselves a little room here to do what we want to do. You know,
Correct.
But I would,
not what we want to do, but what we think
It's,
is
it's best interest.
exactly of our district.
but I think duties, one of our duties as Board of Ed members is to advocate for,
Of course.
you know, so this could almost, whether it's referenced, you know, advocate for blah, 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 see section 9020.1, section A, or something.
You could probably eliminate 90% of this.
Yeah,
Right.
And, you know, have a.
And make
broad-
it, yeah,
Yeah,
much shorter.
But have a little section, but reference it, have a sentence in duties and reference this
Advocacy.
further back.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that, you wanna bang out the 15 minutes, or you wanna stop now? I think we got a lot
I
of
think
work.
the next, the staff, the communications and visits to schools, that's all gonna go under what you're looking for information gathering.
Yeah, and I have a big note on the top
I have a
of
lot
that.
of notes on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll probably take a while.
Yeah.
I think that section, and then the next one is another duties of the board section,
And I,
so,
again, I wrote under there, is this redundant, section 3, duties, 9,000.
yeah, I think we need to,
So,
so
I mean, I think everybody's got some homework for
Mhm.
next time around, and I think we've covered a lot of ground. And so I think we're gonna have a busy meeting. I think we have enough stuff to fill another meeting, so
Yeah,
I
sure.
almost say let's stop now.
well, if
Okay,
we,
good.
yeah, I think we stop while we're ahead.
Okay. And so, no reprinting.
Motion
There's
to
a-
adjourn, Mr.
Motion
Chairman.
Second.
adjourned by Mr. Floyd, second by Ms. Padel. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. And I wanna know, Teresa,